Welcome back to the garage. My name is still Brandon Rogers. This channel is still called Chili Dog Motorsports, and today we're diving back into the little Grom clone that could. Today we're going to be talking about Gears. Gears was a television show hosted by Stacey David that first aired in February of 2007 on ESPN2. It later moved to the Speed Network. It primarily focused on one-off modifications of hot rods and muscle cars. But wait, we're not talking about Gears, we're talking about Gears! Now, we're not going to bore you to death with the science behind gear ratios because we don't really know either. But what we can tell you is that most motorcycles have a front and a rear sprocket, and the size of those sprockets help dictate your final drive ratio. Now, the simple explanation for what we're doing today is a bigger sprocket up front is going to mean more top speed for you in the end. What this is effectively going to do is kind of stretch the gearing in your transmission a little bit, allowing you to ride the gears out a little longer. It's going to be great because first gear was super short. Now we're not going to be banging through first, second, and third before we even cross the intersection. Now, one of the drawbacks to doing this gear swap is the bike isn't going to be quite as punchy right off the line, which in my personal opinion is okay because it's still plenty punchy enough even with the taller gearing. Now, these bikes come from the factory with a 15-tooth front sprocket for a size 428 chain. We have opted to go with a 17-tooth front sprocket. Found that's about the biggest you could fit without replacing the stock chain. Let's get into this thing already. Now, the tools you're going to need today are a 13mm wrench for the chain tensioner, 14 and a 17mm wrench for the rear axle, 10mm socket for that sprocket, 8mm socket for the chain guard cover. I like to use a 1/4-inch ratchet wrench for those sockets. You're also going to need something to cut your chain guard because we got to make a little bit of room. Now we're going to go ahead and start with the chain tensioners here. Remember, you got one on both sides. You got a nut and a lock nut. Let's go ahead and take those lock nuts off first. Back them all the way off. Same on the other side. Then loosen the nut that actually tensions everything. Go ahead and just back that all the way off. Now your tensioners should be flopping around. That's good. That's fine. You want everything loose. Actually take the stuff off. I usually like to just lift up the bike, give the rear wheel a little kick, get as much tension off this chain as we can. I forgot to show you how to loosen the axle, which we already did. So now we have our chain guard slash sprocket cover here. It's going to be your 8mm bolt there and down here. And now our chain guard slash sprocket cover is covered in many greasy fingerprints, but it's off. Now you're going to have your sprocket. There's our 10mm. Now these are probably going to be a little tight for you, but I've already taken this off a few times. So you take those off, and then you get your little keeper here. You just spin it around until you find the grooves. It should come right out. And your socket and your chain should just pop right off. This little dinky socket, get it out of here. Now you take your new socket, sprocket, socket, sprocket. Take the thing with the teeth. As I said, we're not good at words here. Stuff your new sprocket in there on the chain. Might be a little tight.
5 minutes later.
Okay. Gonna do this a different way. We're gonna take the rear part of the chain off the rear sprocket. Give us just that much more room. Now, front sprocket should just slip right on, like so. Then you take the keeper that we threw earlier. Figure out how it goes back on there. You get it in you'll see the little groove on the shaft there. You get it in that groove and then spin it so the bolts line up. And you take your bolts and your 10mm socket, put them right back on in. get that rear chain back on. The rear part of the chain back on. And to get this back on, usually stay out of the way of the camera here. Just kind of loop it back, get it most of the way on the sprocket. There. And usually, just kind of turn the wheel until it climbs itself right back on. Almost there. There we go. That went on. It's a whole lot easier when you got a little bit more garage space than I do. Safety third. I want to cut that part of it. Take a little file, clean up your edges, make it nice. Let's make the bike nice. It's our bike after all. You spent hard-earned money on it. No sharp edges here. Alright? That little dingle there. That's looking factory. Look at that. By the way, it's easiest to do this if you've already been running the sprocket for a little bit. You can see exactly where you have to cut. If not, just about half a thumb's length. That's an accurate measurement. Half a thumb's length. Cut half a thumb's length in there. Now, before we do anything, you're going to want to tighten these bolts. The only good way to do that is once the chain's back on. That was the whole reason for putting the chain back on. Get in there. Oop. And the bike's going to want to roll. Just give her the beans. Oh. Now you can see we have cut this notch in there. Makes a little space for that chain. Alright, not too bad. And we're just going to put it back where we found it. Yep. With the right socket, I suppose. And just put it back where it came from. Put the chain guard and sprocket cover back on. Now we give them a little oomph. Now you're going to want to straighten up your wheel and retension that chain, which we'll do a more in-depth video on, don't worry. Those are tight. These tighten the axle. Just walk down all the way. Shouldn't be going nowhere. Everything should be nice and tight. Nice and tight. And now hopefully you have successfully installed a 17-tooth front sprocket on your Grom clone, and hopefully it rides a little bit better. As always, we're going to link all the parts we use down below. If you'd like to see a more detailed explanation video, let us know. I feel like we breezed over a few things there. Might be a little hard to follow along. Let us know. Let us know. We don't know until you tell us. All right. Thanks again. Now get out of my garage.